They mocked the quiet black kid, until he revealed he was an underground fighter. Marcus Washington shuffled through the crowded hallways of Westfield High School, his worn backpack slung over one shoulder and his eyes fixed on the scuffed linoleum floor. At 17, he stood at an unremarkable 5'8", his lean frame hidden beneath an oversized hoodie that had seen better days. His dark skin seemed to absorb the harsh fluorescent lights, and his quiet demeanor made him practically invisible to most students. Perfect camouflage for someone who just wanted to get through senior year without incident. But invisibility was a luxury Marcus couldn't afford at Westfield High, where being different meant being a target. The school sat on the edge of a predominantly white suburb, its red brick facade and manicured lawns masking the ugly tensions that simmered beneath. Marcus was one of only a handful of black students in a sea of pale faces, and his transfer from the inner city 3 months ago had marked him as an outsider from day one. The first bell hadn't even rung when Marcus felt the familiar presence behind him. "Well, look who decided to show up today," drawled a voice that made Marcus's jaw clench. Tyler Brennan, 6'2" of entitled muscle and malice, flanked by his usual crew. Jake Morrison, stocky and mean-eyed, cracked his knuckles while Connor Hayes, wiry and quick with a cruel laugh, circled around to block Marcus's path. "Where you heading, city boy?" Tyler asked, his blue eyes glinting with predatory amusement. "Let me guess, trying to find where they keep the welfare checks?" The hallway erupted in nervous laughter from onlookers who didn't want to become targets themselves. Marcus kept his breathing steady, his hands relaxed at his sides. "Control," he reminded himself. "Uncle Jerome didn't train you to lose control." Over words. "Just trying to get to class," he said quietly, attempting to sidestep the group. Jake shoved him back, sending Marcus stumbling into a row of lockers. "Tyler's talking to you, boy. Where's your respect?" The word hung in the air like a slap. Marcus felt the familiar fire building in his chest, the muscle memory of countless hours in his uncle's underground gym begging to be unleashed. But he couldn't. Not here. Not when his mother had sacrificed everything to get him into this school, away from the violence that had claimed his older brother. "I said I'm just trying to get to class," Marcus repeated, his voice even despite the rage simmering beneath. Connor laughed, high and mocking. Listen to him trying to sound all proper. "You can take the trash out of the ghetto, but you can't take the ghetto out of the trash." The crowd of students had grown larger, phones discreetly recording, waiting for the inevitable. Mrs. Henderson, the English teacher, walked past with her coffee, deliberately looking the other way. She'd learned long ago that intervening in Tyler Brennan's activities meant dealing with his father, the school board president. Tyler stepped closer, close enough that Marcus could smell his expensive cologne mixed with the stench of arrogance. "You know what your problem is, Washington. You don't know your place. This ain't your hood. This is our school, our rules." Marcus's fingers twitched, remembering the feel of wrapped hands, the satisfying impact of a perfect strike. 3 years of training with Uncle Jerome, a former heavyweight who'd gone underground after a stint in prison, had taught him more than just how to fight. It had taught him discipline, control, and most importantly, when not to fight. A real warrior, Jerome always said, knows when to walk away. So Marcus walked away, or tried to. Tyler's foot shot out, sending Marcus sprawling across the hallway floor, his backpack split open, books and papers scattering. The laughter was deafening now, cruel and sharp. As Marcus gathered his belongings, a foot came down on his history textbook, pinning it to the floor. Tyler's spotless Air Jordans, of course. "Oops," Tyler said with mock concern. "Looks like you dropped something. Maybe you should stay down there. It's where you belong anyway." The days blurred together after that, each one bringing new humiliations. They'd knock his lunch tray out of his hands in the cafeteria, leaving him to clean up while they made jokes about him probably being used to eating off the floor. They'd slam him into lockers between classes, always careful to do it when no teachers were watching, though Marcus suspected most teachers wouldn't have done anything anyway. In gym class, it was worse. Coach Patterson, a former Marine who believed in boys being boys, turned a blind eye as Tyler and his crew made Marcus's life hell. During basketball practice, they'd throw elbows, trip him, slam him to the court accidentally. Marcus took it all, his body absorbing the punishment without retaliating, even as his muscles screamed to respond. "What's wrong, Washington?" Jake taunted after a particularly hard foul left Marcus on the ground, tasting blood from a split lip. "They don't teach you how to play basketball in the projects." "Oh wait, I forgot. You people are supposed to be good at this." Marcus wiped the blood away and got back up. Always got back up. That's what Uncle Jerome had taught him. They can knock you down 100 times, nephew, but if you get up 101, you win. But the restraint was killing him inside. Every night he'd go to Jerome's gym, a converted warehouse on the east side, where men with scarred knuckles and hard eyes came to train away from the public eye. There, Marcus would unleash everything he held back during the day, his fists flying, with precision and power that would have shocked his tormentors. "You're getting sloppy," Jerome observed one evening, watching as Marcus demolished a heavy bag with a series of brutal combinations. "Anger makes you weak." "I'm not angry," Marcus lied, throwing a vicious hook that made the bag swing wildly. Jerome's scarred face split in a knowing grin. "Boy, I've been where you are. I know what it's like to have to swallow your pride, to let lesser men make you feel small. But you know why you're really here, why your mama sent you to that school." Marcus paused, breathing hard, sweat dripping down his face. "To get a good education, to have opportunities. That's part of it," Jerome agreed. "But the real reason is to learn control. Any fool can throw a punch. It takes a real man to know when not to. Those boys at your school, they're testing you. But you're not fighting them, nephew. You're fighting yourself." The word stuck with Marcus as the weeks passed. He threw himself into his training with renewed focus, arriving at the gym before dawn, staying until Jerome kicked him out at night. His body, already lean and strong, became a weapon, but more importantly, his mind sharpened. He studied his tormentors the way he studied opponents in the ring, learning their patterns, their weaknesses. Sarah Chen, a quiet junior who worked in the library, was one of the few who noticed the change. "You're different," she said one afternoon as Marcus returned some books. "The way you move, the way you carry yourself. It's like you're—" She searched for the words. "Like you're waiting for something." Marcus gave her a small smile, the first, genuine one he'd shown at school in weeks. "Maybe I am." The breaking point came on a cold Thursday in November. Marcus had managed to avoid Tyler's crew for most of the day, eating lunch in the library, taking alternate routes between classes. But they found him after school, cornering him in the parking lot as he waited for the bus. "Going somewhere, Washington?" Tyler asked, his breath fogging in the cold air. The parking lot was nearly empty, most students having fled to their warm cars and comfortable homes. "We've been looking for you all day. Jake here thinks you've been avoiding us. That hurts. How are feelings?" Marcus set his backpack down carefully, his movements deliberate. Something in his posture made Connor hesitate. "Tyler, maybe we should—" "Shut up," Tyler snapped. "I'm tired of this piece of ghetto trash thinking he can just ignore us." He turned back to Marcus, his face twisted with disgust. "You know what? I think it's time we taught you a real lesson about respect." That's when Marcus saw it. Jake was pulling something from his pocket, not a weapon, but a can of spray paint. His heart sank as he realized what they intended. They weren't just going to beat him up this time. They were going to mark him, humiliate him in a way that would follow him forever. "Hold him down," Tyler ordered, shaking the can. "Let's give him something to remember us by. Maybe a nice big plant on his forehead so everyone knows what he is." The word they meant hung unspoken in the air, ugly and poisonous. Marcus felt something inside him snap, clean and final, like a chain breaking. The control he'd maintained for months dissolved in an instant. "No," he said quietly. Tyler paused, surprised. "What did you say?" Marcus looked up, and for the first time, Tyler saw what Sarah had noticed in the library. The quiet kid was gone. In his place stood someone else entirely, someone dangerous. "I said no, I'm done." Tyler laughed, but it sounded forced. "You're done? You think you get to decide when—" He never finished the sentence. Tyler threw the first punch, a wild haymaker that would have dropped most high school kids. But Marcus wasn't most kids. 3 years of training took over. He slipped the punch with minimal movement, Tyler's fist whistling past his ear. In the same motion, Marcus pivoted and drove his fist into Tyler's solar plexus with surgical precision. Tyler folded like a lawn chair, gasping for air that wouldn't come. The can of spray paint clattered across the asphalt. For a moment, Jake and Connor stood frozen, unable to process what they'd just seen. Their leader, the untouchable Tyler Brennan, was on his knees, clutching his stomach. "Get him!" Jake roared, charging forward with more rage than sense. Marcus met him halfway, ducking under Jake's wild swing and responding with a perfect uppercut that snapped Jake's head back. As Jake stumbled backward, Marcus grabbed his shirt, pivoted, hand threw him over his hip in a textbook judo throw. Jake hit the pavement hard, the impact driving the air from his lungs. Connor, to his credit, tried to be smarter. He attempted to circle around looking for an opening, but Marcus had spent countless hours sparring with multiple opponents in Jerome's gym. He kept both Tyler and Connor in his peripheral vision, his stance perfectly balanced. "You don't want this," Marcus said, his voice calm despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Walk away." Connor's eyes darted between his fallen friends and Marcus. Tyler was still on his knees, dry heaving. Jake was groaning on the ground, trying to remember how to breathe. Connor's survival instincts finally kicked in. He took a step back, then another. "This isn't over," he said, his voice shaking. "My dad's a lawyer. Tyler's dad runs the school board. You're done here, you—" "Say it," Marcus interrupted, stepping forward. "Go ahead. Say what you were all thinking. Say the word you were going to paint on me." Connor's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Behind them, a small crowd had gathered, students who'd heard the commotion. Phones were out, recording everything. But this time, they weren't laughing. They were silent, shocked. "That's what I thought," Marcus said. He turned to Tyler, who had managed to struggle to his feet, his face red and twisted with humiliation. "You wanted to teach me about respect. Here's your lesson. Respect is earned, not taken. And you haven't earned anything except what you got today." Tyler's lips curled in a snarl. "You think you're tough now? You jumped us, caught us off guard, but this isn't over. You're going to pay for this, you—" He lunged forward, desperate to reclaim some shred of dignity. This time Marcus didn't hold back. He caught Tyler's arm, used his momentum against him, and drove his knee into Tyler's ribs. The bigger boy crumpled, curling into a ball on the cold asphalt. Marcus could have continued, could have given him the beating Tyler had been planning to give him. But Uncle Jerome's voice echoed in his head. "A warrior knows when the fight is over." "It's done," Marcus said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You leave me alone. I leave you alone. But if you come at me again, if you try to paint anyone, if you so much as look at me wrong, I won't stop next time, understand?" Tyler wheezed something that might have been agreement. Jake and Connor helped him to his feet, the three of them limping away like wounded animals. The crowd parted to let them through, whispers already spreading like wildfire. Marcus picked up his backpack, his hands barely trembling. Sarah Chen stood at the edge of the crowd, her eyes wide with something that might have been admiration. He gave her a small nod and walked to the bus stop, ignoring the stares and whispers that followed him. The next day, Marcus expected retribution, suspension, expulsion, maybe even arrest. Tyler's father wielded considerable influence, and Connor's dad was indeed a lawyer. But when Marcus walked into school, something had changed. The video of the fight had gone viral overnight, not just in school, but across social media. The full context was there for everyone to see. Tyler and his crew cornering Marcus, the spray, paint, the attempted assault, and Marcus's measured response. Parents were calling the school, demanding to know why bullying had been allowed to go unchecked. The local news picked up the story. Suddenly, Tyler Brennan wasn't the golden boy anymore. He was the racist bully who'd tried to spray paint a slur on a black student and gotten what he deserved. Marcus found himself in the principal's office, but not for the reason he'd expected. Dr. Martinez, a stern woman who'd previously seemed indifferent to Marcus's situation, looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Washington," she began carefully, "I understand there was an incident yesterday. While we don't condone violence, we also recognize that you were defending yourself against what appears to be a hate crime. The 3 students involved have been suspended pending a full investigation." Marcus nodded, saying nothing. He'd learned that sometimes silence was more powerful than words. "I also want to apologize," Dr. Martinez continued, the words clearly difficult for her. "It's come to my attention that you've been subjected to ongoing harassment that was ignored by staff members. That's unacceptable, and we'll be taking steps to address it." The changes were immediate and dramatic. Teachers who had previously looked the other way now made a point of checking in with Marcus. Students who had laughed at his humiliation now gave him respectful nods in the hallway. The basketball team captain approached him during lunch, asking if he'd considered trying out. But the most surprising change came from Jake Morrison. Marcus found him waiting by his locker a week after the fight, his face still showing faint bruises from his impact with the pavement. "I wanted to Jake struggled with the words, clearly uncomfortable. "What we did was wrong. The things we said, the way we treated you. It was messed up." Marcus studied him carefully, looking for signs of deception. "Why are you telling me this?" Jake's shoulders slumped. "My little sister saw the video. She's adopted from Korea. She asked me if that's how people would treat her in high school. I didn't know what to say." He met Marcus's eyes. "I'm sorry, really sorry. And I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but I wanted you to know." Marcus felt some of the anger he'd been carrying for months begin to ease. "Apology accepted," he said quietly. "But you need to do better, not just with me, with everyone." Jake nodded rapidly. "I will, I promise." Tyler never apologized. After his suspension ended, he returned to school diminished, his influence shattered. The crew that had once followed him scattered, wanting nothing to do with the scandal. He finished the year in isolation, transferring to a private school the following summer. As for Marcus, he found himself in an unexpected position. He wasn't popular exactly, but he was respected. Students who had once avoided him now sought him out, particularly other kids who'd been bullied. He started an informal self-defense club, teaching basic techniques and, more importantly, the confidence to stand up for themselves. Sarah Chen became a close friend, and through her, Marcus found a circle of people who appreciated him for who he was, not what he could do with his fists. He still trained with Uncle Jerome, but now it was purely for the love of the sport, not as an outlet for suppressed rage. On the last day of senior year, Marcus stood in the same hallway where Tyler had first confronted him. So much had changed, but the lessons remained. He'd learned that strength wasn't just physical, that true power came from knowing when to fight and when to walk away. Most importantly, he'd learned that standing up for yourself didn't mean becoming the thing you fought against. As he walked out of Westfield High for the last time, diploma in hand and acceptance letter to State University in his pocket, Marcus allowed himself a small smile. He'd been tested and had emerged not just victorious but better. The quiet kid who'd shuffled through the halls was gone, replaced by a young man who knew his worth and demanded respect, not through fear but through strength of character. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's becoming the person your enemies tried to prevent you from being. And Marcus Washington had become exactly that, one careful step at a time.